Hello, world. Welcome to episode 24 of the podcast monitoring app. Last time we finished up the unit test runner. We actually started unit test runner and we moved all our tests into another directory as well as created a simple script that will run all the tests, just unit tests or just functional tests. And so as we go, that's where we'll be adding new tests on. And now we are ready to create the episode filter. And we'll have to determine, we don't have any tasks for this yet, so we'll have to determine what tasks we want. And basically, we're going to be adding this component here to give our kind of final output. So this is really the last piece of this structure that we've built up. The output that we have here is what will be used with the Twitter API. So once we finish that, right, we'll kind of get into something a little bit new, and we'll actually be, sending out kind of data to something. And for this, I think we're gonna create a new branch to work on this one on. So let's get started. We don't need to use the V branch for this because there's nothing changing. So we'll just go get checkout -B, and we'll say this is episode filter -009. Alright, and let's just start with the simplest. In progress. Okay, so first thing we gotta do is kind of determine what sort of logic we want the filter to have, and then we'll add some tasks for that, and then we can actually start implementing things. So I think I think there's kind of two main types of things that we want to be able to do, right? So, if the premise of this is to kind of post on Twitter or any other social platform about what episodes are, out for that day, and specifically if they're out on the main channel or out on a sub channel, a specific feed, but not on the main channel, right? So the premise was, okay, so actually, I don't really do South Beach sessions anymore. So, for example, the Shutdown Fullcast puts out an episode, or that was Fullcast After Dark. Stu Potty puts out an episode on the sub feed, but it's not actually included on the main feed, right? We want to determine that. So, we'll definitely want to be able to filter to specific dates. Otherwise, we'll just find everything. So we want to say today, what episodes are kind of out. The other thing we want to do is be able to kind of determine, well, what episodes are on this one but not on this one, or what episodes are on both of them, that sort of thing. And I think that's enough logic to start with, right? Because once we have that, we kind of have some output we can work with. And then if we want to add more stuff, we can update the filter, or we can see if we need to update more information in the parser, right? But we'll have kind of an end-to-end, starting with the metadata. We'll be able to say, get today's episodes, or get today's episodes that are only on the main feed. And so let us come in here and add So 16 is our last number. So we're on 17 and below 9 and open, and I'll create a few of these. Okay, so let's just add some numbers here real quick. Okay, so I think the first thing we need to do is be able to get episodes by date. So we'll say create filter method to get episodes by date. I don't think there's really a need to get episodes like specifically for today, because that would just be something you'd pass in, and that would be like, you can't really test that, right? Because that's going to change, unless we have unless we update, like we can't really like if it's the actual today, right? We'd have to fudge that, and if we're fudging what today is, right? If we can get an episode for a specific date, then today being that date is fine. We might want to check out ranges and stuff in there, but I think having a method that says, okay, get the episodes for this day, right? Given a so looking at this, given a feed, get episodes for date X. It's probably a good enough filter for that. I think we'd want to be able to, now I guess the next question is, do we want to be able to get episodes if we're given a single feed, filter it down to an episode for in a specific date range. So we could do a date range, or we could do a specific date. I think actually, I guess date range is probably better. And that's the most flexible. And we could then have a method that says, so we could say get episodes in date range. But I also then think it would be useful to say, kind of have a standard range, right? Like anything from, now I'm in Pacific, and these are mostly put out in Eastern time, right? And so you could say, midnight Pacific, which would be 3 a.m., which would allow anything that kind of comes in late. Or you could just say midnight Eastern until, the next midnight of the next day, right? And that way you're just saying, okay, for this day, right? And then it would create the range that would be the kind of the hours that are on each side of it. So I think that's also actually useful. Method to get single feeds episodes in date range, to get single feeds episodes for day. And I'm saying single feeds there, right, because that is operating on a single feed. Then the other thing, right, is, okay, so now let's say we're given 2 feeds. I definitely want a difference of the 2 feeds, right? I definitely want, okay, given this feed and this feed, right, what episodes are in this one feed that aren't in the other feed. So create filter method to get episode difference between 2 feeds. And then the other thing would be a union, right? So we could say, okay, given this one, now there'd probably be right. There's going to probably be an order there, like any sort of like a general subtraction. So then, do we want a union? Things that are in both. Is that going to be useful? I guess yes, because then I guess you could just say, okay, get everything that's in both of them, and then get anything that's not in the main one, right? Because then otherwise, essentially, I would have to say, get anything that's not in, get anything that's, so if we're having like a main and a sub feed, all right, take everything in the main feed and the sub feed, get everything that's not in the main feed, but if that is in um, a sub feed, and then if you wanted, but okay, so all the other sub feeds. So let's say create filter method to get episode union between two feeds. Okay, so that would be probably all the functionality that we want. Now the question, I guess, becomes, what is this going to end up looking like, right? Because so we could, I guess there's kind of two things we could do, right? Essentially, what is this output? Is this output a list of episodes? Is this output a feed in itself, right? So if I have a feed and I want to say, well, get the ones for today, do I just get the episodes that are for today? Or do I kind of leave so remember, a feed is a list of episodes and a metadata object, a feed metadata. So with that feed metadata there, right, then if I'm still using it, well, the feed metadata kind of is still being passed around. And so I then can essentially still say that, oh, okay, so like, take a feed, take a full feed metadata, full episodes. Send me back a feed that has the same, feed metadata, so it's the same feed, but the episode list is shorter, right? Now, what if I have two? So let's say I have the main feed and the sub feed, and I'm saying, get me the episode, get the difference, get the episodes that are in the main feed, or that are in the sub feed, but that aren't in the main feed, right? So I'm taking the sub feed, I'm subtracting the main feed. Then I would still want the feed info. So I think the output of this filter is still going to be a feed. It's just the episode list in that feed is going to be different, right? And so if we're looking at feed, remember these things aren't really like mutable. So if we're looking, like, let's say we look at the feed unit test, right? So this feed here is the metadata with feed metadata, and then episodes. So basically, we would create a new one, right? We would create a new feed of data with the same thing here, but then we would create a different list of episodes. So we would kind of operate on the episode list, get the episodes that we want, and then put that into a data and then create a new feed and return that new feed, but it would be, a corresponding feed because it has the metadata there. Okay, so with that said, I think that's all the tasks that we really want for this. So let's go git add, git commit, created tasks for filter. Okay. So now, like usual, we're going to come into here and we're going to create a new new file, and so filter unit test.py. Now, do we want to call it feed filter or just filter? I think just filter is fine. And I mean, actually, I guess we should have just come in here. We should have just probably made a copy. Let's actually just do that. So let's go delete tests, filter unit tests, and we'll say copy tests. I don't know what a short one's going to be. Feed metadata as tests, filter unit test.py. I guess I could have just done that manually, but whatever. All right, so pass these. This is a pass. Low. And then we have the ensure imports, and then here we're going to change the name of this. This is now going to be filter test, and this will be from filter import filter, and then the ensure inputs is all good. Okay, and so now we also need to come in here into the main directory and create a filter.py. This will be filter class. Okay, and now, so the other thing we're going to do is we're going to wire it up into the test suite. So right now, if we run the test suite, test suite, right, we get 38 tests ran. And this is going to be unit tests, so we can do the -u. And now, in no time at all, we get 35. So now we're going to have to add in this in here. And this is going to be right here. So from filter unit test, import filter test. And we'll add this. Nope, wrong spot. Right here. And now if we run this, all hooked up, got those 36 tests. And if we just want to run it by itself, we can say filter, I guess Python tests, filter unit test. Cool. So now we can run everything. If we make any other changes around stuff, or we can just run that. We can run another unit test, and I mean, it takes a little more time. So we'll probably just run it through this. So we'll say get status, get add, okay. So now let us start on the date range one. Okay, and we can close up this and come in here. All right, so we're going to do the similar thing we did with all these other classes, where we're going to create a filter object, and the method is going to kind of pass in So there's nothing we necessarily need to do for the constructor. And so we'll say test filter in range. And so for the setup, we're going to do the same sort of setup as, I think, feed unit test. Or no, actually as feed parser unit test. Well, I guess we don't need to do the parser in the stub, but we could just use this information. So let's pull this in over here, and we'll paste this in there, and we'll need to, from feed metadata, from feed, import feed, and then from episode, import episode. What else we got? And then these two. All right. Everything should still work. Let's just run it real quick. All right, so all the imports are good. Okay, so now basically filter, we'll do filter in range and def test filter none in range. We'll plug that one in. And so here we'll say filter dot, so we have the metadata here, that's this. Let's actually, okay, so let's do this. Let's do episode 1 is this one here. Get rid of that. And then we'll update this. And because the episodes are going to, right, so the episodes we're actually going to kind of reuse. So actually, let's take each of these. Put that there. Place them in here. Episode 2. 3, 4. All right. Well, I want everything to stay as the same space. So I'm going to do this. All right. And now we'll come in here. Move everything over. And then get rid of these commas. Okay. And then now this becomes, we can get rid of this here. episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. Okay. And this will be self dot feed start feed let's do initial feed, and then we'll create a couple others. And this will be empty feed, and this will be filtered feed. We'll just start with that for now, and then so what we'll probably end up doing, right, is so we'll filter, let's just say, we'll filter like to these two. Okay, so in this case, so basically what we want to do is we want to go, oh, and then the other thing we need to create is self dot filter equals filter. Okay. And then so in here we'll say self dot filter dot by or in range, and we'll need a start range and an end range. And we'll need the self.initial feed. And then we'll need to self.assert equal filtered feed and self.filtered feed. And we'll need start range equal to DT and end range equal to DT. Actually, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say comma end range. Since they're kind of a range anyway, that kind of pairs them nicely. And then we'll add that in here and get rid of this pass. And now we need to kind of determine the range here. So in the none, right, we'll say 2023 121, and we'll do tz info equals tz.utc, and we'll say 2023 122 tz info.utc, or tz info equals tz.utc. And then for this, we're going to go, we want to filter into episodes 1 and 2, which are here. And so we're actually going to say 2023-1-20-18-0001 tc.info. Because I want it to be just after this one right? So it'll get filtered out. And then we'll say 2023-1-25. TZ info equals tz.utc. Okay, and then the last thing for this, right? So if we run this, we get filter has no in range, right? And so basically we need to create this and filter. So we need to add that in. And the other thing we'll need is, at least for now, we'll need this as an import, and we'll need feed as an import, at least for the signature. So we'll say def in range feed start range, or we'll say start. Yeah, I guess range doesn't really make sense. DT and DT, and it'll pass back feed. Go over to those, add that there, and then we'll come back in here, and I'm gonna update all the start ranges and the end ranges, which is good because they're also shorter. Cool. All right, so now let's run it. Unexpected indent. All right, so now instead of those errors, we now get take 3 position before we're given, and I need a self here. All right, so now we should, instead of get errors, we should get failures. And we got one failure, none is not equal to it. The other one has no attribute info. And so where do we go? TZ, where is it? Line 52. TZ info .utc. All right, so now we got the 2 failures, that the none being, sent back as that. Let's take a look here. Let's go get diff. For the filter, we just added the definition, and we've implemented the setup. So we'll say git commit am implemented tests for date range filter, and created method def in filter. Failed. Cool. Okay, so on this branch, we've now started the deliverable. We've added all the tasks, created the skeleton of it, and added some of this data and info as well as the tests. And we'll need to basically code it so that this will pass, and we'll probably have to think about this equals because, or did we add equals? Actually, I think we added equals, right? We added equals to filter, right? And so they're equals if those are equal, and this is equal if that, so that is equal. So those might just work. And in fact, what I want to do is I'm gonna want test equals self, and we'll say self.assert equal episode self.episode1. Oh, they're not in there. I guess I could just do it in the setup. That's not a big deal. We'll figure it out. So yeah. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to tag this. Get tag episode 24. And that is all for this. So next time we will implement the in-range method. So until then, see ya.